just a quick explanation of what a virtual machine is. So we have two images on the slides currently. One is a normal machine. So the outer box represents hardware. It's like the physical things that runs the computer. Then you have an operating system. It's the curved box inside. And that is representative of software or an operating system. The operating system is like Linux or Windows or Mac. So it's separate. It's actually separate from the hardware. Some people get this a little bit confused. That's why this slide is here. And then within the operating system, it manages files, apps, software, various data that you have on the computer. So it's an interface to use the hardware. A virtual machine, it's similar. So you have the hardware, then you have an operating system. There's other types of virtual machines. The type we're using is represented by the second image. So for example, most people use Windows or Mac. And then you'll have virtual machine software. And within the virtual machine software, you have emulated, or you can think of it as sharing the hardware to run another operating system. So you can get two copies of Windows running or a copy of Windows and Linux running. And if you want to spend a lot of time figuring things out, you can mess with having Mac running depending on which version and whatnot. The outer operating system still manages files and things like that on your system itself. Okay. Do we have any questions about that? Do you get the general idea? It was recommended before the workshop you download this. I realized the email links were completely botched up. So if you don't have it now, what you can do is you can Google or Bing or whatever search engine you use, VirtualBox, and you will need to download the VirtualBox package for your host system. So if you're on Windows, if you're on Mac, OS X, if you're on Linux, you should know what you're doing, hopefully. And then you will also need to download a copy of Linux. So Fedora is the easier one to set up, depending on what you're here for. If your classes use Ubuntu, most of them here on CSUMB will use Ubuntu. You can download Ubuntu. The steps are very, very similar, and we can guide you through that process as well. So to download Fedora, you just type in to a search engine Fedora, download, and you click the download link, and it'll look like this. For Fedora, you're going to want to download this one here probably, depending on your system. Most PCs are still x86-64. And you just hit download. If you want to participate in NCL, I recommend Kali Linux, which has a bunch of pen testing tools built into it. You can do bare metal. That will be an ISO image, just like Fedora. I haven't tried this out, but you can also download a pre-built virtual machine, which may make things way easier for you. They have a nice VirtualBox image right here. The first step is to install VirtualBox. So I have it pre-downloaded right here. And you just click next. The reason that we chose VirtualBox is because it's cross-platform. It's on Linux, Windows, Mac, and it's used here at CSUMB. So go ahead, next slide. Okay, well, apparently you just keep hitting next until it's installed. Once you got that set up, you'll need to create a new virtual machine. So in VirtualBox, you'll hit new and you'll type in a name. So let's say Fedora. You click next, set the memory. I recommend setting above the defaults and click next. Just create virtual hard disk now. That's fine. Default format is fine unless you use various different virtualization products. Dynamically allocated will save you space in the short term, so that's fine. Fedora is going to want more than 8 gigabytes, so I recommend bumping it up to around 16. It doesn't need to be precise. Oh, it's really picky. There we go. And hit create. So once you've created the virtual machine, you need to basically tell what it's going to install the operating system with. So you hit settings and you click on storage. Under storage, there's a controller IDE. And if it's not there, you can actually add one where it says add optical drive or add hard disks. Click on that. You're going to need to select live CD/DVD, which means you can boot from this virtual CD. And then you will need to choose a disk file. So wherever you downloaded that ISO image, so over here, it's Fedora Workstation on live x8664-34-1.2.iso. I've gone through this, so it's conveniently located right here. And then go ahead and click OK. Once you've inserted the virtual CD into the virtual CD drive, then you click Start. When you enter a VirtualBox virtual machine, your right control key is what allows you to enter and exit the workstation. Remember that, because it's really annoying to have your mouse stuck within a virtual machine and not know how to get it out. So you'll need to select up and click Enter on Start Fedora Workstation. Keep in mind these steps are similar if you were installing Windows instead of Linux. So one of the big advantages to virtual machines is that if you have a development environment, say various different versions of Python or a SQL server, you can actually isolate them from each other so that when settings change, it doesn't mess other projects up. I know in some of my classes here at CSUMB, it's been relevant because different teachers have been using different versions of Python and they mess each other up unless you spend a lot of time configuring it. And it's oftentimes easier just to have, okay, here's a virtual machine. Everything for this class is in this one, done. And then I don't have to worry about other Python installs messing it up. So Fedora is actually booted. So this is technically running from a CD or USB drive, and you can actually do this on your physical computer as well. We're going to hit install to hard drive. Oh, it's selecting France by default. Okay, you're going to want to make sure the language is set to one that you understand. So it'd be really bad for me to pick like Mandarin Chinese because I don't speak it. Okay, so this has some settings. So you need to tell the installer where you want to install it. All you have to do is click on that one with the little icon really quick and then just click done, and it'll automatically select the device to install it on. And then you hit begin installation. And then we wait. And hopefully it does this pretty quickly. It just finished, so back to the workshop. So once it's finished installing, go ahead and click Finish Installation. Click in the upper right-hand corner and just go ahead and click Power Off. Click Power Off, and it should shut the virtual machine down. So if you're on Windows and you're having trouble getting VirtualBox to run, it's because you need to disable Hyper-V. So Hyper-V is basically Windows's version of virtualization, in short. And when Windows is running it, it doesn't let you run other people's virtualization solutions. You can mess around in settings and try and force it to work nicely with other things, but that's a pain to set up. And so if you want to do that, you can do a lot of Googling. Once you've powered off Fedora, go ahead and click Settings, click Storage, and that Fedora Workstation Live under Controller IDE, you want to eject it because if you don't eject it, it'll boot from this live CD, which means none of the stuff you install or files you save on the virtual machine will be persistent. They just won't, it'll be in RAM, not in memory. So click Remove Disk from Virtual Drive, deselect Live CD, DVD, click OK. And if you click Start, it will start the operating system up, which looks nearly identical to the live CD we started up. It just won't have the option to install because it's already installed. For a future workshop on command injection, you're going to want to install another operating system. It can actually be Fedora if you want. That's okay. I highly recommend Kali Linux and starting to learn how that works. But you do need Fedora because the backend for Fedora makes it easier to perform the particular command injection that we're going to demonstrate. So here it is starting up. It'll have some things like enter your password, things like that in there. Start setup. I like turning this off. No, skip. You can enter a name in like Fred. Set a password. Really weak password. I'm naming this one Fred. Don't hack me. Start using Fedora. There you go. Okay, so if the virtual machine freezes, you can actually hit the X and just say power off the machine, and it will just, it's like pulling the plug. The next thing that you're going to need to know is once you've installed 2 virtual machines, so you'll have to go through this process again for another one, you'll need to set up a connection between the 2 virtual machines. And you can do this by going to Host Network Manager and clicking to open up that window. So I have some already set up here. In particular, I think it's VirtualBox host only Ethernet adapter number 3. You can create these by clicking the little create button here. If you enter in the settings as they are here, it will probably work. So configure adapter. So this is the address that the adapter is at. Then you need to click on the DHCP server tab, if it will let me. We're going to go to our backup. On the left-hand image, select Host Network Manager. The image on the right will show up. You'll need to enter in those settings. Click on DHCP server. So when the operating system in the virtual machine boots, we want it to talk to the VirtualBox DHCP server that's built in, and it will need some configuration options. So you'll hit enable server, and then you'll have the server address, server mask, lower address bound, and upper address bound. And you can talk to me if you want to know more about what those mean. For now, it's sufficient just to type in those settings. Okay, next slide, we're going to run through the next couple of things really quick. So you then select the virtual machine you want to set this up in, and you'll need to do this on both virtual machines you want to connect. So you click it, then you hit settings, next slide. Then once settings show up, you click on network, and then you can click on the various adapters. Adapter 1 normally connects directly through your machine to the internet. So we're going to click on adapter 2. You select enable network adapter, attached to host only adapter. So this is where you're going to find those adapters you just made. And then you select the one that you made with those specific settings. In your settings, it may not be specifically adapter number 3. It may be adapter 1, it may be adapter 2, depending on what's already in your virtual machine settings. I had some other stuff set up already, so it'll probably be adapter 1 or 2. Just be aware of that when you set it up. Next slide. Okay, so to make things easier on a virtual machine, there's something called adding guest additions. Next slide. So it's fairly simple. Once you start the virtual machine, you click on devices, then insert guest addition CD image, click next, and it should show, it may indicate a prompt. Here's the prompts in Linux. I don't have a screenshot for Windows. You enter in your password or click run, next slide. In Fedora, it will start a terminal and you'll need to type in yes, next slide. And then after it installs, then you'll need to restart. Next slide. Okay, so this makes things like it catching your mouse easier, sharing files easier. So how do you share a folder between your host system? So that's like the physical laptop you're using, and the VM. So that's the new operating system you're trying to run within your computer at the same time. Okay, so next. So Process, once again, is fairly simple. You can click on shared folders settings. In the second image here, a window shows up. You can click that button in the right-hand corner for machine folders. Next. You'll enter in a folder path. So in this case, it's C something, something, something. It can be any folder on any folder that you have permission to access on your system. Go ahead and click auto mount and make permanent. This will make things easier in the future. Otherwise, you'll have to do this every time you want to set up a shared folder. Hit OK. Next slide. And once you do that, the shared folder should show up on your desktop. So as you can see in this image here where it says name. Okay, next. Okay, here we go. So there's an extensions package. Click next. You go to the VirtualBox webpage, and it's actually a little bit below where the VirtualBox install is. And it's VirtualBox, in this case, whatever number is current, Oracle VM VirtualBox extension pack. You click that, it will download a file. And sometimes VirtualBox will actually warn you saying, hey, do you want to upgrade? So if you already have it installed, you click upgrade. If you don't have it installed, double click on that file and it will launch. It'll give you a license agreement. Scroll down, click I agree, next, and then it will be installed. So this will just make running the virtual machine, things like graphics drivers, more available when you run things. Okay, and this is the end of the workshop officially. So thank you.